Good afternoon, 4th grade. Today we're going to continue our study about the Egyptian gods and goddesses. And today we're going to learn more about Usir, God of the afterlife. Before we get started, you have a quick write. It says, describe the conflict between Set and Usir. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. Today we're going to focus on what new information we gain reading Usir's side of the story. What new information do we gain from reading Usir's side of the story? Our focus standard is being able to analyze Usir's point of view and how that adds to the conflict, and then compare and contrast the three characters' different perspectives. Our vocabulary words for today are preordained, homage, and eternal. If you preordain something, that means you've already determined what's going to happen ahead of time. So you might preordain that you're going to have ice cream after dinner. You've already decided that. The next one is homage, and that's to show honor or respect. And then eternal means forever, and this is a symbol that means infinity or forever. Go ahead and turn the page in your notes, and we want you on the first page of your text, Usir or Osiris, God of the afterlife. All right, and as we're reading, we are going to use our CSPS strategy. Let's go ahead and start reading. Usir's head spun. How had he arrived here? But the love of his life was kissing him, and right now that's all that mattered. The couple plucked clusters from the tops of papyrus and made a feathery bed to share. Woman of the lotus, man of the papyrus, upper and lower Egypt, rare and tender night. It was a moment of perfect happiness. They knew within Aset's womb a son grew. It was a moment of utter sadness. They knew this was the last time as wife and husband. Once death comes, even to a god, life on earth is past. Usir woke at dawn, green as papyrus, kissed his sleeping sister-wife goodbye, and walked into the water, still uncomprehending, aware only that this was preordained. He must leave this land, his wife, this life. When had the Nile become so wide? Then he tasted the salt of sorrow, his wife's tears. We'll stop right there. And we're thinking about who is this story about and where are they? And we know that this story is about Usir and that he was kissed back to life by Aset, and they were able to spend one last night together. And so in your text you need to underline, but the love of his life was kissing him, and right now that's all that mattered. Underline that sentence and put a C out beside it. And then this sentence down here that says, it was a moment of perfect happiness. Underline that sentence and put a C out beside it. And for 1A, we would write, Usir awoke to Aset kissing him, and they spent the night together very happy. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And you would write down these two quotes that we just underlined in 1B. But the love of his life was kissing him, and right now that's all that mattered. You would also write down, it was a moment of perfect happiness. Press pause to write down your quotes and play when you're ready for the setting. Alright, and we know that Usir and Aset spent the night together, but in the morning he walked into the Nile. Okay, and we know that because it says, Usir woke at dawn, green as papyrus, kissed his sleeping sister-wife goodbye, and walked into the waters. Okay, underline that sentence and write an S out beside it. And in 2A, we would write, Usir and Aset spent the night together. In the morning, he walked into the Nile. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, we will write down the sentence that we underlined and wrote an S out beside. Usir woke at dawn, green as papyrus, kissed his sleeping sister-wife goodbye, and walked into the waters. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Alright, and so now as we're reading the last paragraph on the first page into the second page, we're going to focus on Usir's problem. And I'm already thinking that if they spent the night together and that they love each other, and now that he has to leave, he's probably going to be very sad about having to leave Aset. And that is a potential problem that I'm going to look out for. When had the Nile become so wide? Then he tasted the salt of sorrow, his wife's tears. In a vision of memory that wasn't his, Usir saw Aset wandering, her raw feet, hoarse throat, ragged heart. He raged at such sadness. He could do nothing to solve past wounds, but he would honor the enduring grief. Yes, he would make the river flood yearly. When the waters retreated, they would leave behind silt to enrich the land so plants would find purchase. The land would resurrect to match Usir's resurrection. Sheep would graze, baha, baha, bleating praise to Usir's spirit. Usir laughed sadly. A god would come to his death, a good would come from his death, an abundant harvest each year, a fitting homage to the tragedy of Aset and Usir. Usir swam with the Nile, and it felt natural as though water was home. The sheet that covered him was skin, not scales, but it was green and hope-studded. The world rolled with the current, the float, the bobbing, the floating. In a blink, all changed, more dark memories. But these threatened his sanity, for these were his alone. And so the author is trying to get our attention by telling us, like, Usir is about to have a really dark memory, and this memory is real. And so this is a clue that we might be close to our problem. He was alive in that beautifully covered box, in black that held only the clean smell of cedar. As he pushed and shouted and struck against the lid, that mild smell was overpowered by the acrid odor of his sour breath, the stench of mortal fear. There was little air in this tomb. His mouth and then skin and then insides dried. He was cold, lifeless, a miserable wretch, for he would have no funeral, no tomb for his wife to honor, eternally alone. Then everything changed. He was dead still, sealed in his coffin still, yet he knew Aset was close. She carried him home. She would right this most grievous wrong, but then Set came and shredded him. Usir's parts had been throbbed if they could. Never whole, never whole. Alright, so we'll stop right there because Usir has this painful memory, and that is evidence of our problem. In box 3A, we would write, Usir remembers how Set killed him and tore his whole body into pieces so that he would never be whole. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, we will look at this last paragraph of Usir's memory. And it says, he was dead still, sealed in his coffin still. Underline that, put a P out beside it. And then also underline, but then Set came and shredded him. And put a P out beside that. Those two sentences together, you'll write in 3B. He was dead still, sealed in his coffin still. And in the other sentence, but then Set came and shredded him. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. Alright, and so now we're going to keep reading to find out how Usir was made whole from Usir's perspective, from what he remembers. Until Set made him whole. How she had done it, Usir didn't know, but he knew their love had transformed her. She became the sweet wind that refreshes. True love could do that. Usir hadn't realized that Set despised him until the moment before the lid fell, when he saw Set's face twisted with envy, jealousy, naked need. Could Set have discovered Usir's interlude with his wife Nebet-Hut? It was a simple mistake. The sisters looked alike. Nebet-Hut was the silent shade cast by her sister, a faint replica. And it was only one, such a high price to pay for an accident. Well, the price was now paid in full. Usir's fresh green skin sloughed away in the waters, a poignant kiss goodbye. He grew black skin, dark as what lay beneath the earth. He swam to the underworld Duat, where his nephew Impu oversaw the dead. But Impu yielded his supremacy there to Usir, a gesture of loyalty and love that touched Usir's heart. Usir vowed to rule with mercy, for no one knew better than Usir how awful would be a world without mercy. All right, and so now that we're looking for our solution, we know that in this last paragraph that underline the sentence that says he grew black skin, dark as what lay beneath the earth. He swam to the underworld Duat, where his nephew Impu oversaw the dead. Underline those two sentences and write an S out beside it for our solution. In box 4A, you would write, Usir grew black skin and went down to the Duat to rule the underworld. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, you would write this quote in the last paragraph. He grew black skin. He swam to the underworld Duat, where his nephew Impu oversaw the dead. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. And for the paragraph, it says, what new information did we gain from reading Usir's side of the story? Right, so you need to think about, what did you learn today about Usir and his conflict with Set that you didn't already know?